So I guess staying a little bit on that topic of mining, one of the things that we've certainly observed, not just in mining, but across any industrial product is a quite significant disruption of supply chains, not just with China, but with a number of other countries. And, I guess a lot of people sitting right now and sort of scratching their heads and going, okay, how can we rethink how traditional supply chains will work in the future? What are some of the things that you see with your background and your experience that you can sort of point as to where we're going around supply chain?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I think, what we've seen from COVID in a lot of countries is people turning to look at their own supply chain domestically, at a national level. And I think, the US is a pretty good example. They're formerly, if I stick to my kind of mining knowledge, there's the whole, history of steel making in the country, and then that, being effectively on its knees, and the same with coal and, power plants and all those kind of things. So I think, America could very easily, start up steel production again in the country. They've got rich resources to do so. They've got good access to iron ore from Brazil, in addition to their own coal assets. So, that's a space you could watch. Whether Australia could do something like that, I'm not sure. We've had, a real movement away from that. We've got some issues around, labour supply and in some respects labour productivity, certainly labour cost into those type of things. So in terms of, the big organisations looking at changes to their supply chain, I think there's already been in recent years a real focus on, local procurement for smaller goods, and there's been a real focus on, Indigenous businesses and procurement in that space. But on top of that, with what's happened, I think we will see people looking at more options to manufacture at home. And again, sticking with mining, I think Australia's really focused on METs, like the technology sector supporting mining, and there's some great stuff happening in that locally. But I think we've got to go broader than that and look at the whole supply chain and things that we can do in Australia to support the industry.
Yeah, it would seem that if you look back just even 15 or perhaps 20 years, then a lot of things that we were manufacturing here, anything from taps to toilets to whatever not, we were like, oh, they can make that cheaper in country X, a lot of it in China, but also some
Yep.
other places. And guess what? The Chinese, were just as smart as everybody else. They're going, hey, we can robotize that. We don't need to have lots of workers in factories. So the reality is we just outsource the robotized manufacturing into some other country and I have to ship it for them back. And a couple of industries that I've delved into the last year have come back and says we actually, net pay more than we did 15 years ago, adjusted for inflation.
Yeah, right.
And it's basically they've gone backwards. And but at the time it seemed like, oh, that's a great idea. Let's do that. Dirty stuff and workers and terrible things, like let's get rid of it. And so I think a lot of people are going, oops. And I think there's going to be some significant rethinks in parts of the supply chain.
Yeah, I agree, and that's interesting to hear. I mean, you still make the assumption that it's cheaper to manufacture overseas, no matter what the product or component. But it's interesting to hear that it's not actually the case now after all that time.